Greetings, and welcome and salutations. Well, in the last video that I did in this multi-part series, I changed all of the repositories on my server from 13.2 to 42.3, or the highest available for that particular, or for the repositories. Then on the second part, I did a very long and probably very boring example of just doing the upgrade, the actual upgrade itself. Now, in part 3, it turns out I'm going to have to do a little bit more than I thought, because I'm taking a look at the screen, or for the server right now, and it's still running kernel 3.16. 4.4.75 is installed. Something went wrong. Not horribly wrong, but something went wrong. It's not running the correct kernel. So, before I do that, before I do the bother with Nvidia, I want to deal with the kernel issue. So, yes. And this is why I like Opensuse. If something goes wrong with the bootloader of some sort, and this one's not catastrophically nasty, but if I need to mess around and tweak the bootloader, and I'm stuck at a TTY session, or in this case I'm SSH'd in, I can at least still do stuff. Ooh. Maybe not. Okay. I know what this is. It's an issue I ran into. Okay. So let's at least get myself a graphical user interface. If I'm going to be stuck on this kernel, might as well do something. I'll fix the YAST bullshit at another time. Forgot that's something that happened there. The YAST UI stuff changed, and I may end up needing to do a dup. Don't want to, but I may be forced to. Okay. There we go. So when it comes to installing the Nvidia driver, so this has changed slightly. To install the Nvidia driver, at least now and on Opensuse, I'm not entirely sure on some of the other distros, but this is using the run file from Nvidia, and this is the way I'd do it if I were on Ubuntu or some other distribution as well. So sh dot slash Nvidia, and in this case I'm going to cheat a little bit, 9 dot run dash e. Now that switch there gives you expert mode, and I'll explain some of the useful features of expert mode as we go through this. So here is where the license agreement, I accept. It appears you already have a driver installed. Continue. Check for the availability of alternative driver installs. Why not? Why not? If this is the first time. Nope. Yeah, go ahead. And yes, I do want CUDA because I do use CUDA. This is why the last thing and this is one of the reasons why the E switch is very useful. It gives you these when you're in expert mode. And one of the issues I've had recently with some of the newer kernels is this Nvidia DRM actually breaks stuff quite badly. It causes the kernel to spit out some messages saying that the kernel is tainted and it refuses to load the Nvidia modules. And it also has the nasty little issue of preventing DKMS from recompiling the new module every time you have a kernel update. So with this, no. Would you like to register the kernel module sources with DKMS? This one I'm going to say yes. This is incredibly useful, especially if I go and take this machine up to the current stable kernel, because it will refresh so often. If I accidentally update the kernel, at least it will rebuild the Nvidia modules so that I have X. Do you want to install the kernel module sources? Yes, I do. Thank you. Do you want to install NVIDIA's OpenGL header files? Yes, please. This is incredibly useful, especially for preventing OpenGL issues with Steam. Do you want to install NVIDIA's 32-bit compatibility libraries? The Steam client itself is 32-bit, and if you don't do this, the likelihood of Steam not working for you is there. So for those of you that use Steam, yes. In this case, I have this part here, the GL vendor neutral or the non-GL vendor neutral. I haven't seen any difference between the two at the moment. There are other people that are more experienced with this particular realm. I'm not one of them, so I'm going to stick with the default. And this is all the GL stuff. And one of the reasons why I do this versus why don't you install it from the Nvidia repository? Because all these disappear on me. God, do they disappear. This just likes to bugger off on the Nvidia repository, breaking things to no end and making it impossible to debug and fix. It's just not worth my time anymore. It's burned me too many times on way too many machines. So everything here looks perfectly fine. Yes. Now this is where I usually get really, really nervous. If it gets stuck at 5% and stays at 5% and never goes beyond that, it is likely going to crash. And I found with the DRM KMS option, if you choose yes, DKMS will crash, your kernel modules won't get installed, blam, Nvidia Driver failed to install. And if you've had the Nvidia Driver installed previously, it won't update the module to your newer kernel, and because you have Novu blacklisted, well, you're pretty much screwed to have a TTY terminal. Oh, glory be! Praise Scott Method! Yes! It worked! Okay. No, I do not want. You have found recently if you don't have an xorg.conf file, switching monitors and monitor resolutions is very useful. So, well, that does it for this. At this point, you'd reboot the machine. I'd recommend either doing mk init rd. Let me try something before we leave. Ooh, HID cherry. Ooh. Usually, from the wiki page, it recommends doing make init RD after installing the Nvidia driver. That's not always necessary. It's a good habit. If something goes wrong, it can fix stuff. But it's not necessary. So at this point, I'm going to try a few things to try and get the current kernel updated or put onto here, and just a few other tweaks. But I should have a perfectly functioning system. Other than those few small issues. If I don't need if I needed a headless system, I now have 42.3 installed on my server. And this is usually how I do it. And this is the sort of mess that I have to go through. But it's a mess that I do kind of expect. And it's, to me, less of a headache than trying to go to square one and then rebuild back up. So I thank you for joining me in this journey and have a wonderful time.